And welcome back to the Baseball Development Hub podcast. My name is Trevor Powers, and I am joined, as always, on the podcast by co-host Dan Galati. Dan, it feels nice to be back. For those that aren't watching on the YouTube, and they're listening on your headphones, I am back in the old podcast studio, and it feels good.
Yeah, it's good to see you back in your normal setup, not having to be on the road somewhere. Feels good for us to be able to hop back on here in general. Weird weather day here, but it feels good.
Yeah, no doubt. We're obviously in the thick of the Christmas season and really excited with some of the content that we have that has come out on the page. Interview with Coach Eric Bakich came out last week. Obviously, our player development content, interview with Josh Epstein, pitching coach at Richmond. This week, we'll have an interview with Nate Thompson, Arkansas's hitting coach, coming out as we get closer and closer to the holiday season. Just to update everybody, we're going to take a little bit of a break come holiday time. That doesn't mean there's going to be nothing on the channel. We'll still have podcast episodes. We'll still be clipping up our episodes and things like that to ensure that you're still able to get the content that you need. But in terms of our interviews and our in-person stuff, we're going to push that back. This week will be the last week until we get into the new year. But Dan, obviously we're somewhat fresh, but this is the first time we've recorded since going to Clemson and getting to see kind of what they have going on down there. And what are some of the takeaways? I know tomorrow will be 2 weeks exactly, so it's not going to be fresh by any means. But what are some of the takeaways that you had from visiting with them and getting to see what Coach Bakich and company are building?
Yeah, you said 2 weeks, and it feels like it was 6 months ago. I beautiful campus, great facility. Like you go to all these different places, these different schools, whether it be Arkansas, Arizona, Maryland, West Virginia, Penn State, all the places we've been, Georgia, Dallas Baptist, and like I'm always interested and curious. One of the things that I'm excited to see about places is like, what's the culture? Kind of what are they about? Who are they? What does it mean to be a part of this particular program? And in a lot of those places, you hear a lot of similar themes. And I don't want to say they're interchangeable because different people, different campuses, different climate, like all that does play a role into it, in my opinion, when I'm evaluating stuff like that. Clemson, to me, truly feels the most unique, maybe, of all of these places. What Coach Bakich has there, the way they run things, the way that what he makes important. One of my favorite questions, if you guys listen to all these interviews with head coaches, I love asking, how do you decide what's important today? What's important right now? The way they answer that question, the way he has built that thing is kind of, it's unique. It's fun. It's very different, I want to say, which is interesting because, he comes from a very impressive coaching tree, obviously. And I think, though, that like if you look at the difference between a Vanderbilt program, coached with Tim Corbin, and his program, I think they're very different in how they're run and what's important. He is big, though, just like Coach Corbin, on the classroom setting and things like that. But kind of the stuff outside of that and how they do things, the vibe they've created there, the fun they want to have. And, I like go to a lot of these places and like development's a big thing, or, intensity to win. You go to LSU and like the pressure to win. And Clemson, I feel like it's like, what's your goal? And they're like, let's have fun.
Mm-hmm. Let's win at a high level and let's have fun. Right. And I would definitely agree with that. And obviously, for anybody who follows the Clemson baseball program, obviously they take a fall game against the Savannah Bananas and use that as a competition day. And that's a really good way to embrace the community, especially the youth of the community, and bring people together and kind of around Clemson baseball, which is, I think, really cool. And I think the biggest compliment that I could give Coach Bakich is he's an innovator, right? And not in the way that we envision so many innovators in our sport, like, oh, they're on the forefront of technology, or, oh, they're really finding out a way to use, pitch movement profiles and put it into a different lens to explain to their guys. They do a really good job with that. Like, that's not to say that they don't do a good job with that, but his ideas that he has in terms of how to build a culture, how to build a community, how to embrace some different things. And whether it's youth baseball, whether it's showcase baseball, whether it's college baseball, he's very understanding and open to what the modern day is. I mean, a really cool clip that we put out, Dan always likes to finish an interview with what do the next 5 years look like. And he said it kind of jokingly, but he said a full-time restaurant in the outfield. And it's like, that's so cool, right? And when you're there, we're lucky enough, we've been there for a game and you see it, right? And they've embraced that. The community's embraced this baseball program, and Coach Bakich has embraced the community and has really prioritized how to get them involved, to feel like they're a part of it, to feel like every success and failure they have, the fans are playing a role. And that's very important to him. And I think he said some things off the record that were really cool and innovative, of ways to improve baseball at all levels, right? Improve it for, and not just for the players. Like he said, if he was to host a recruiting event, a showcase tournament at Clemson, he would host a carnival in the outfield. And it was just something that he probably doesn't even really think about being that impactful. But as somebody who's recruited those, that landscape, who's coached in that landscape, who's been a director of showcase, who's seen how much these parents sacrifice, these siblings sacrifice, and all of these things, he made the point of, our parents come to these events and they're sedentary. They sit there for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours at a field and don't move from their chair. Let's give them something to get them up, get them active, to stay healthy, and give them an opportunity to do these different things. So I really, if there's anything that's stood out to me, right? And he was unbelievable in all aspects, right? Like, this is not just the one, just like how willing he is to go against conventional norms for a guy who's been under some of your more, well-known, structured, like, we're going to do things this way, we're going to wear the same thing, we're going to do all these things. For him to kind of embrace what the kids nowadays need and what the communities and the fans want to see, it's really exciting, because I do think whatever they believe is possible at Clemson in terms of doubling the capacity of that stadium, putting a full-time restaurant, adding outfield seating, whatever they believe they can do in terms of fan experience, he's the one guy in the country that I 100% will put my faith in, that he's going to do something that's going to benefit everybody in that community and not just the baseball program.
Yeah, and he's like he cares about the individuality of his players and the marketing of his players, and he wants those guys to have a brand. Whereas a lot of places we have gone to and been to, and I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. You have to do it, whatever you believe in. As a program leader, you just have to go with that. But he a lot of these places you go to, like, you're a part of the program. No one's bigger than the program. Fit into the program. Where at Clemson, it feels like you are the program, each guy individually. I want you to have a brand. I want you to have a following. I want you to be able to make money off of it in some cases, right? With NIL and marketing deals. And he truly believes in that structure and the environment he has created. It's fascinating, because I do think that when you get into I wouldn't say it's like a little more professional-ish as far as that goes, with how, you have your superstars who have their like brand and image in Major League Baseball. You have to be really good at setting a culture if you're going to do that. So so that jealousy doesn't come up and tear. And he does. Like, he gets those guys to believe in it, and he does it. Like, each individual making up a team is just, I think, like, his biggest strength, and how he goes about it. And like you said, and then add on top of it, just like his creativity and how he approaches their work, and how he approaches growing Clemson baseball as a brand is incredibly, again, unique, impressive, and really fun to talk to. Like, just another guy that, even off the record, just like picking his brain about things that had not even anything to do with baseball in some circumstances, just really insightful. And like, you can just see, he's one of those guys when, like, you can see the gears turning. Oh, here's an idea. And it's no wonder why he's successful, and he's been successful wherever he's been, and he's successful at Clemson right now, and getting them, they're hosting regionals every year. And sooner or later, if you're hosting a regional every year, sooner or later, you're going to break through.
Yeah. 100%. I think I wanted to bring this up in my original tangent about him bucking the trends. I think even his vision for what they define as fall ball, he kind of went
Yeah.
into it a little bit more detail. So maybe you can offer exactly kind of what they do. But just as somebody who was there behind the camera listening, he's kind of said what we all kind of know of like what has typically been a fall in baseball just doesn't make sense, right? You look at the MLB calendar and it's like our ramp up and our evaluation period is spring and spring training. And then guess what happens right when that finishes? We go into a season, right? Like smart, makes sense, right? College baseball just like decides to be like, okay, so we're gonna do this crazy thing where we're gonna have a season in the fall, and then we're gonna give you 8 to 12 weeks to sit around and just hope your guys do what they need to do, and then we're gonna bring you back, and then we're gonna have like 2.5 weeks to ramp up before we play games. And I thought it was really cool. He had said kind of in a facetious way of like, why are we playing games in November? Why are we playing games in October? Why are we taking statistics in September? Why are we doing all these things that are so normal from a baseball standpoint? And they really pushed to go against that this year. And I think that's going to be one thing that I've always believed is like, we don't have enough time built into the college baseball calendar for true player development, weight progressions, adding muscle on guys, adding velocity, adding bat speed, those things that are tools, right? Improving our tool set. We spend so much time teaching and evaluating the game itself that we lose an opportunity to get guys better. And I'm really interested to see what the results are from them being able to do that and kind of go against conventional wisdom of like what a fall looks like and just embrace more of the player development side of things and evaluating their guys and giving them a kind of roadmap to get to the spring and be ready to hit the ground running. So kind of what was your perspective on that, kind of what he had said and why that could be valuable for them in the future?
Yeah, right. He wants to get rid of kind of the competitive anxiety of the fall because he doesn't see a purpose in it, as you kind of laid out, right? Tracking statistics doesn't see a purpose in it in October when so many of the guys like it they need a time to get better, especially considering, if you look at returners and you look at even high school guys that come in, like what are they coming off of? Usually a full season and then a lot of cases a full summer season. It's like, so we're just going to keep playing them. Like when is the chance to get these guys better? And he, and I think he's right when those guys are constantly feeling like they are being evaluated based on results and results alone, which is normal, right? Like that's how every player feels all the time. We went through it. You feel that way in the fall. Like you go out there in an inter squad or a fall game and you have a bad outing. You're only focused on the result because you're worried about how that judgment is going to be, what the judgment is going to be from the coaching staff from that performance. He wants to eliminate that because he wants that time to be truly for development to get guys better. There's a time to evaluate that type of stuff, he thinks. And it's, getting back from Christmas break and as they get into their championship season, it's not fall ball. I love it. Like, I think that's so smart. I think they're going to see guys take larger steps and bigger jumps in their development and did probably over the fall, because if you're removing that, again, that competitive anxiety, that results anxiety from guys and truly, building a roadmap for them to just develop their skills, what they have, understand their strengths, make those even stronger, figure out the weaknesses, find a way to combat them. And that's all those kids are worried about on a day in and day out basis. And you're detailed into it like they are, and the things they do and the staff they have in place to attack those things and to kind of be the guiding light for their guys on that journey. There's going to be some pretty big leaps from that roster, and I think it's an incredibly unique way. I think it's extremely smart. I think it's the way that, like you said, that's kind of what the structure everyone should be following is like, why are we results oriented in the fall? With it doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter. And I think that the question would be, well, like, how do I know what I have on my roster if we're not doing that in the fall? Recruit better. Be able to evaluate quickly in January and early February, understand what your schedule looks like, be able to do it then. I wish we could play games before our season started in college baseball like they can in basketball. It just makes so much more sense. But it's not how it works. So you have to find a different time to do that. But and I understand that's kind of the pitfall for a lot of coaches when they plan out their falls. They want to know what their roster looks like and what they have. You're just gonna, I think it makes a lot more sense though to develop the guys that you do have on your roster in the fall, so that come spring you build better depth because listen, with roster limitations, every guy is way more important now in college baseball if you want to get to where you want to go. If you want to play deep into June, you are going to need every single guy on that roster to contribute in one way or the other. And you made that point. I think it was when we were there. Again, that feels like it was 6 months ago now. But talking about how trotting the kid out there that throws 92 but has no idea where it's going, and on getaway day when you're getting your butt whipped, now do they hold less value than the guy who maybe he throws 84 but he's going to be in the strike zone, so at least we can get out of here and get our guys home and get them some rest before we have to turn it around for midweek and our next weekend. 1 through 34 5 is way more important now. Everyone has to be able to contribute because we can't hold 52 players.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's going to be something that we're going to see more. Two-way guys are going to come back. And again, we talked about this, I believe it was with a CAA program. I talked about, hey, that kid who was a shortstop, who might be your starting shortstop, your backup shortstop, your freshman shortstop, he's going to have to throw a pen a week, even if he pitches to a 10 on his career, because it's valuable to have that, phenom freshman that you're really excited about in the future. And he might not be playing every day. He might be your utility infielder, but he can fill that role of like innings eater, right? Like every part of your roster is going to matter. And I think that I made that point to coach, and it is something that from a player development side, like there is no spring development anymore. There is no red shirting and having a guy on ice to lift weights and maybe throw live on Wednesdays, or maybe take a couple live ABs to get your guys some rehab back. There's no injured reserve in college baseball. There's no minor league system in college baseball. There's no active and inactive roster. The 34 that they set now, roughly now, I think is when the rosters have to be set in stone, is what you're going to have in June. And if you have 15 injuries, which we've all been around programs that have just had the cookie crumble the wrong way, you got 15 injuries. There ain't no replacements. Like you're not calling up Mark Wahlberg and Invincible and getting the replacement players in there. You're not. You don't get to do that. Your roster's your roster, and you have to set it in stone. So it's very important to have value in those guys, and it is really cool to kind of hear his perspective on that. But yeah, really fun. I mean, the last thing I'll say before we move on to our next and main topic that we want to speak about today is how cool is what they're building for that fan base and that community is the biggest thing I would take away about it. If we don't talk about, say what you want about the Savannah Bananas. I'm never been to a game. Will probably never be to a game, all the things like that. The things that they do really well is the fan interaction side. And if there's anything minor league baseball and college baseball can learn to sell more tickets and sell more intrigue, it's to embrace the fan element. And what Clemson has done is on the forefront of finding a way to make every person who comes to a game feel like they're a part of the action and a part of the community and a part of that team. And I think that's a really good model that other schools can take in terms of trying to embrace their community. That's going to drive up value in a baseball program, right? And enjoyment as a fan, and finding ways to make sure that, when everybody zigs and you're the one zagging and it's that way, I think that's a good sign, right? It's a really good sign for them. So Dan, what we want to talk about today a little bit is it's been in the news a lot recently, and obviously it started with the big one this offseason as Tony Vitello made the transition from Tennessee and the SEC to the San Francisco Giants, right? And what we've seen is a lot of college coaches taking professional jobs, whether it's developmental roles, whether it's minor league roles, whether it's big league roles like Tony Vitello, and then obviously his pitching kit coach, Frank Anderson. A couple examples that have stood out to us is Jake McKinley, the head coach at Nevada, took the job with the Mariners. We had Phil Sebuhar, who we spent some time with, awesome hitting coach at at Charlotte, not the University of Charlotte, at Charlotte, took a hitting development job with the Nationals. We have pitching coach Dustin Glant from Indiana, who also took a job with the Nationals. We've seen 3 to 5 guys take jobs with the Nationals straight out of college baseball. And then obviously the aforementioned Tony Vitello and Frank Anderson. So a lot of the texts that have come into my phone about this is why? Why would a coach do this? And I think there's a multitude of reasons. But from your perspective, if you were in one of their shoes and you kind of had this opportunity, why would you be interested in taking a job in professional baseball in comparison to a similar job in college baseball?
quality of life is one of them. I don't think it's the most important, but I just think before I go deeper into this, I think that definitely plays a small factor into it. When you're a college coach, it's a 24/7, 365 job. There is no downtime, there is no off time, because if you're not, in your fall season or your spring season, like you're talking about, you're recruiting. Winter break, you're recruiting. And I know there's dead periods, but if you're in your dead period times from recruiting are usually spent, focused on your team and planning that stuff. Whereas in Major League Baseball, when you have a job with one of these organizations, you're like a half a year employee. And then the other half of the year, you can actually have a family and do other things. So that certainly, I think, plays a role into it. Bigger than that, though, I think is like college coaches. The majority of them were college players, were baseball players at one point in their life, even if they didn't play in college. Everybody's dream is to be a part of a professional organization. I don't think that changes as a coach. I don't think that, that kind of want to, curiosity, hope to be able to put on, the hat with the logo on it, with the Major League Baseball emblem somewhere on the back of it, ever runs out. And you can further your career from that, right? And it is not there's no rule about going back to college after you head to a professional organization. And actually, you see a lot of times that it boosts where you're at, and you can go from a Charlotte to a pro organization to a Power Four school. You can be Wes Johnson and go from Arkansas to the Minnesota Twins to LSU for 1 year to the head coach of an SEC program. Like, I think it's about furthering their career, because just like every player that comes into their program as a player wants to further their career, that's the reason they're there. It's the same reason for a lot of college coaches. I know people want to talk about the landscape of college baseball being brutal, and maybe that's why. I think this started more so, like, this has kind of been a trend back in 2019, since like 2019 when I got into coaching, so I started paying attention to it. We've seen guys move on, right? Like, I think of Dylan Mazzo, I think of Kai Correa. Like, these are people that we knew back in our small bubble that were moving on,
Nick
and moving up into Nick Weisheipel a couple years ago. Like, so I think that's something it's about furthering your career, just like the players want to do. They want to do, and similar to going from small, group of five or smaller conference school to bigger conference school in college. Now, again, the landscape is, everyone wants to point to the landscape because it is different and it's changing, and it's tougher to navigate, and there's more challenges for coaches. There's more challenges for roster building nowadays, but we get to talk to a lot of these guys off the record. Right. And I will be honest, for a while there, I would ask a lot of these guys, man, quality of life for you guys really must suck. And like, almost to a T, 100% of them were like, we coach baseball. Yeah, like, it's a little bit harder, but like, this is what we signed up for. This is what we do. This is who we are as people. So I don't think that the college landscape does that. Maybe in certain situations, for some of these guys that I can't speak for, that's the thing. But we heard Tony Vitello kind of talk about, like, I wanted to see if I could cut it. I wanted to be able to see if I can make it in the big leagues. And like, that's something that everyone who, from the day you start playing baseball, everybody has that notion, right? Like, everybody wants to know whether or not they can cut it one day in the big leagues. And I think that that's more so what we're seeing. And these are great opportunities, especially, I think it's, if you had to ask me, like, what's more of a reason college athletics is changing, or the way Major League Baseball organizations think can change, I would say it's the latter, not the former.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many points I want to make off of what you said. The first will be, it's a two-way street, right? And that's the biggest takeaway I would have, is this has been happening for a while. Like, our good friend Matt Trait, the former head coach at Hartford Community College, who's been with the Orioles for years now. We talked about Nick Weisheipel, Kai Correa, like all of these guys, Dylan Mazzo, who have stuck in professional organizations, and even to a certain extent, some of them making it to the big leagues. Pro orgs have been coming for small college coaches specifically for a really long time. A really, really long time. Because the reason why a lot of these orgs believe this and believe in those guys is because they say, if you can develop talent with the resources you have in Hokessen, Delaware, at a Goldie Beacom college, right? What do you think that guy could do with our resources, our players, our talent, right? So if you have the mind to develop guys at a smaller level, we should take that mind and we should put them in a position to thrive in our system. And the Orioles were on the forefront of that trend right there. And they would also go into, hiring bloggers and people who just wrote articles and who challenged conventional norms and bringing different people into the fold for these opportunities. So it's a really interesting kind of thing to see now that it gets into the D1 landscape, that now it becomes a storyline. This has always been a storyline in college athletics and college baseball specifically, of guys taking that jump. And I think the reason why it's coming into Division One baseball is because there's a common denominator here, right? And it's really only three orgs or so making all these hires, right? There was somebody who was interviewing a mid-major head coach was interviewing with the Red Sox. That was the only one that was like outside of this bubble. It's like we've seen guys go to the Giants, right, with Tony Vitello leading that charge. We've seen the Nationals dip into college baseball for 3 to 5 of their hires. We've always seen the Mariners take this route. So McKinley going from Nevada to the Mariners comes as no surprise. That's always been kind of at the forefront of their decision making. It's a couple orgs that are seeing a market inefficiency, which is what building a pro org is all about, and attacking it and attacking it with with the chips all in, right? Hey, Nationals, we're going through a transition. We've brought in a whole new management group. We're going to attack the player development side, which is great because that org has not developed anybody since Juan Soto, right? If you really think about
and
it.
Did they develop him?
And did they develop that cyborg? Because Dan and I could have probably figured it out. It's like, hey man, go hit.
We've heard stories from Chip Hale about him as a 16-year-old in spring training. Yeah. He was who he is.
100%. And it didn't take any development. So it's really cool to see that they are swinging to the other side of being like, we need to embrace every moment of development and get the guys who do it the best. And I do, biasedly speaking, I do believe college coaches are better on the development avenue than pro coaches are. I think maybe it's because they get guys at a more influential time, 18 to 22-year-olds, where they're still kind of pumped out with testosterone and still have opportunities to make physical strides. And they're able to add 7 to 10 miles per hour on the guy. They're able to add break to the breaking ball. They're able to improve movement patterns, to improve command. They're able to add bat speed and natural strength, where guys are able to thrive in power and all of those things. So maybe they do have that leverage of an opportunity to get guys that are more impressionable from a physical standpoint and able to be developed. But I will say, guys make bigger strides in college typically than they do in pro ball. And I think that's because of the environment that college baseball is. Right. And so by attacking that wholeheartedly with the coaches and finding the coaches that do a really good job, because again, I mean, I can speak for one of these specifically, but we obviously know through people the other guys and how they develop talent. It's like Coach Sebuhar is one of the most impressive hitting guys we've been around, bar none. He's one of the best,
really good.
And the Nationals found that out in an interview process, whether they reached out to him or he reached out to them. They looked at him and they said, "This guy should be with us, right? And should be hands on with our guys." And we spent a day with that guy. I'd agree. I
agree.
think he could be anywhere in the country and developing guys at a high level because he was super impressive. And so I think that's where the two-way street has just opened up more. And because now it's in Division I baseball, now the public's catching on. And now people are starting to see it and be like, oh, this is odd. It's not odd. It doesn't have anything to do with the landscape. Pre-NIL, these guys would have made this decision. And the last thing I'll say on this, because it looked like you wanted to make a point. The logo on the hat thing that's everything. That's everything. That drive, that ego side, ego in a good way, right? I'm not saying ego in a bad way, ego in a good way. Just the ability to say you worked for a professional baseball organization is what we all do. Not to get too inside baseball, not to pat my back, but it's like last offseason, I was in an interview process for a major league scouting job, and it made 0 sense for my family. It was a part-time gig. That money was going to be less. And I sat my wife down and was like, I think I'm going to take it if I get it. And it's like, why would you do that? It's like, just because if I was able to say for 1 year that I work for a professional organization, that's something I've always wanted. That's something that I've always dreamed of, to be able to wear that polo, wear that hat, be in that position, be on those conference calls, whatever it is, you're willing to make the sacrifices financially to make that happen. And it's funny that to see this, it's like, I've always leaned towards like, no, it's just hard to hang that phone up. It's hard to be like, nah, I'm good. Click. No, those guys are all going to entertain it, and the opportunity, because like you said, they can all come back. Tony Vitello, if one and done in Major League Baseball, there's probably 7 programs in the country right now at the top of the sport. 7 of the top 10 programs that are either forcing their head coach into retirement for that guy or firing their head coach if that guy wanted to come back to college baseball. So they can always come back, and you'll never get this opportunity again potentially. So I don't blame any of them for taking it.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry for forgetting Matt Trait there. That was a quick stint. I completely forgot. We still joke about it. But even going back further, like how many people know the name Russ Steinhorn? Guy was the hitting coach at Delaware State University. Did the Nationals just hire? Yeah, yep, right. And so not surprised that Russ, I'm sure he's in some kind of decision-making position at this point for that stuff, like would be able to identify someone like Philip Sebuhart. But like, yeah, Russ Steinhorn was the hitting coach at Delaware State University in 2012, and the next year, or 2013, and the next year he was, in pro ball with the Astros, and he's been in pro ball ever since. That's, almost 15 years ago now. So this has been happening forever, like you said. And for some guys, it's always, for a lot of guys, it's been a springboard, right? It's advanced their career. It's been that. And now, for a guy like Vitello, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a springboard. It's a different challenge. It's a unique challenge. And he's so ingrained and has done such a good job at the college level that you just made the point that you made about anyone would be willing to have him if he was done in 2 years with the San Francisco Giants and wanted to get back into college baseball. His agent's phone would be blowing up. He would have offers from, some of the best programs in the country. So, look at it it makes sense. It just makes sense. I mean, this is something we see in football all the time, right? Like, this is not rare. Like, as you see it in football every year. You don't see it in basketball as much, I guess. Although I'm not as up on the round ball sport, but yeah, like I think this is something that's normal. Has been happening forever.
Who was the Celtics head? Brad Stevens went from Xavier.
Brad Stevens,
the Celtics head
Butler.
Coach, and
Butler.
Yes, Butler to the Celtics head coach.
Yeah, Billy Donovan's done it, right? Billy Donovan did it. Yeah, I think did the guy maybe the guy for Iowa State at one point too. Yeah, like, I mean, it happened. I mean, and then you can look in the NFL, obviously, like all over the place like that. That's Marcus just Freeman. Like, yeah, him and his painted on hairline. Yeah, Marcus Freeman, I guess potentially, but like, seriously, like the amount of people that have done this and have always done it, I think, like you said, it's grabbing people's attention now because they're names that people recognize on the college level. Obviously, college baseball has grown in their followings. These names, Tony Vitello, and some of these names are a little bit bigger. Now they have more of they kind of, people recognize them. College baseball coaches are more well known, which then leads to more people seeing it and being like, "Huh, this is rare." It's not. And it makes sense, and I get it. And it's just like, to me, it's no different than them going from Tennessee to, if you were to go to Wes Johnson, went from LSU to Georgia, it's no different to me. Like, I don't think there was that much of a difference. They're taking another job within baseball. You'll catch my attention if these guys start if a guy like Tony Vitello stops being the head coach at Tennessee to go get into, auto sales. Then I'll be like, huh, this is weird. College athletics really must be bad if this guy is going to, be a pharmaceutical salesman, that would medical equipment. There you go. if he leaves coaching at Tennessee to sell medical equipment, I'll start, raising my eyebrows a little bit, because that's certainly a switch up from the norm. This is a baseball coach going to coach baseball.
Yeah, that's a really good point on that end of the landscape, where it's like when guys, and we've seen this a little bit in college football, Matt Luke, obviously, who's currently the Clemson offensive line coach and was formerly of Georgia, stepped away from the sport. Who the heck knows what he did for that little extended period of time, but then he probably realized that in normal, if you're career is as an offensive line coach. You don't make as much
It's
money
what
as
you do.
offensive line coach. And you've seen some head coaches that step away and do TV, right? And that's the difference, though, in a sport like football, where these guys that are burnout, if we want to question the landscape and question how much these coaches are enjoying, being coaches at this point in time, they have that off ramp. Right, Dan
And
Mullen did it for a couple years. Chris Peterson has walked
well,
away and is probably happy still,
but the
and he's
difference
still
with
a great
Dan
football
Mullen is
coach.
Dan Mullen didn't walk away on his own
No, he
accord.
got
Dan
fired.
Mullen was forced
Yeah.
out of Gainesville, Florida, and ended up on
Yes.
TV. And you knew he would go back at the right opportunity. I think he wanted to see how the landscape shifted before he just jumped right back in. But um, I think this, like baseball, to me, what it seems like is baseball's behind some of these major sports as we've gone through these transitions, like a year or two and everything. Like, remember when Jeff Halfley took the Packers job to be the DC from
Yeah.
head coach
Yeah.
at Boston College, and everyone was like running around like college football's ruined. These guys are going to be blah blah blah, and it's like no, like that hasn't happened, right? We haven't seen that. It has been no different. We just had one of the craziest college football coaching carousels imaginable. None of them were because they're going to the NFL. Marcus Freeman maybe here in a couple of weeks will be heading to the NFL, but that's like that to me is very similar to Tony Vitello. Marcus Freeman's on the top of the mountaintop and wants to go see if he can test his mettle in the National Football League level. Again, call me when Marcus Freeman's stepping away from being the head coach at Notre Dame to go, sell hair product. Like, then I'll be surprised. But until then, like these guys, going up in levels is just, again, it's just like every player that comes through their organization and their program has aspirations to continue their career at the next level. These guys aren't that much different.
I think a bigger example is if Jake McKinley, instead of going from Nevada to the Mariners, went from Nevada to UCLA. Would we bat an eye? Right? Like it's
right.
It's the staircase, right? We're all taking the steps up the ladder. Even Tony
Yep.
Vitello, Tennessee to the Giants is a step up. There's very few steps up from the head coach of an SEC program. There's very few. One of them is a major league managerial job. One of them is, right? Like, and that's the side of it, is these guys are doing no different than a Division III recruiting coordinator taking a Division III head coach. He took one step. Tony Vitello took that same, maybe larger in terms of intrigue step, but that same step of progressing through his career and advancing himself. And at the end of the day, I think the bigger question at this point, I think take Tony Vitello aside. We already had that conversation. We already did that conversation of whether it will work. Being a manager is different than being a player development guy, because it's just managing personalities and things like that. And I think he's going to thrive in that environment. I truly do. The question I think that's next is, what about these player development guys makes, people think it's going to work? McKinley being a field coordinator with the Mariners now, Coach Sebuhar being obviously a hitting coach for a minor league system. Do you think it'll work? And I think I know the answer to that. Why specifically should people that don't understand how much development goes into college baseball believe that these moves will work?
Bad podcasting. It depends. Right? Like it depends. It depends on the individual. It depends on the organization they head into. I can speak obviously most on Phil Sebuhar because we spent a day with him. And even so, like it's an educated guess, like just being around him, his personality, what he believes in on the development side of hitting, like, yeah, I think he'll be extremely successful because he's a really good hitting coach. And if the Nationals give him the leeway and the opportunity to succeed, he's going to succeed. He won't get in his own way. I think it can work. Why? Like, to me, it's like, why can it? I guess is like, people always want to ask, why will this work? To me, it's more like, why wouldn't this work is more of the bigger question to me. Like, I think, you made a good point that a lot of times college players are more impressionable. And so like and they're at a different stage in their career because you have the draft, the opportunity to go straight to the big leagues from high school. The guys you're getting in college usually need some refining and some development, or they would be they would be in a major league organization already. They would have gotten drafted. So like a lot of times these guys need development. So you're in there with them and you're developing them. You get so much time. We just talked about it. You have a whole fall season before you ever play a game in college baseball. You have time with these guys. I think all of that, kind of, and college baseball as a whole has swung towards development, right? Like we're sponsored by Newt Force because college programs are all leaning into development and tech, and Newt Force is a tool that all these programs are using. Like, it's just kind of how college baseball is. So these guys, if you're going to get a job like at a Charlotte, or if you're going to be the head coach of Tennessee, you better be able to develop talent, like, because that everyone in college baseball is doing it, and if you're not, you're getting left behind. So get them into the pros. It's a little more challenging in the pros because there's so many voices, so many opinions when you go level to level to level to level. Guys are getting paid more. Guys might not be as receptive to coaching. So, it just depends on the situation you're in, the type of person you are, the personality you have. What are you in it for? But to me, my inclination is, if I know anything about these guys when they get the job, I always think they're going to succeed because I believe in their coaching practices and who they are and their understanding of what it takes to develop good players. If they can get their, hooks in a guy for an extended enough period of time, they're going to be able to make them better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that success is defined differently in professional baseball, because in college baseball you might be able to make 10% gains, whereas professional baseball, all you're striving for is 1%, right? Like, this kid's in double A, he's hit a brick wall, he's,
Get them to AAA.
100%, get him to triple A. Okay, this guy's in triple A, get him to professional baseball, right? And then occasionally you're going to have, in the national scenario, an Eli Willits, and first overall pick. Maybe he doesn't need as much TLC. Maybe he doesn't even need any development, right? How are you going to put that player in a position to succeed? It's different, right? Whereas in college, the 18-year-old you get, he's 160 pounds soaking wet. He's touched 97, but he sits 82. Like, there's so many ranges of like development opportunities that it's not saying it's easier, but it's a simpler math to have success. And those strides that you're able to make, milking every ounce of potential out of a college athlete, those are big strides that you can make. In professional baseball, it's about refining that last 1% to ensure that guy has an opportunity to make life-changing money and make the life-changing opportunity. Like, that's what professional baseball is. So that's where I think that bringing some college coaches with some different trains of thought, some different, beliefs and some training, environments that they're going to bring to get that 1% is really valuable. Right. And
Yep.
I think that's just the biggest, if there's any reason it doesn't work on the surface of what we see in college, like, again, you see it in college where it's like what Matt Hobbs is able to do on the pitching side. So you see a guy go from 87 to 89 to 97 to 99. And it's like, whoa, that's impressive. Yeah, that's what impressionable 18-year-olds can do, right?
Yep.
You see what he will Lloyd go from, a WAC player of the year, freshman of the year, struggle in the SEC and won, and then Golden Spikes Award, right? Like, that's just the strides you can take. In pro ball, you're getting that guy that would probably win the Golden Spikes more times than not. These guys in Double A, Triple A, if you stuck them in the SEC, they'd hit 450. Okay, well, how do you get them to hit 280 in professional baseball? It's really hard, right? And it's really hard to get that last 1%. So that'll be the fascinating piece to see, is what does 1% look like in professional baseball compared to the 10% you're able to achieve in college baseball. So I'll be fascinated to see, but I think it's something that it's cool that these orgs are open to it. As somebody, me and you are in the weeds of college baseball player development, and we get to talk to these guys. We get to pick their brains, whether they're people that we've interacted with or not. They've all been unbelievably impressive in what they're able to do. And there's so many other coaches out there that also fit that bill of unbelievably impressive and would wow 99% of baseball people with the knowledge and the ideas that they have. I'm telling you, you could take any college coach and move them into professional baseball. I think a lot of them would have success, right? Like, a lot of
Yes.
them do. The pinnacle of the sport is spread throughout professional and college baseball. And I think these guys are just a long list of the next people that are going to continue to show that.
I agree. Yeah, I think that, and I understand why people may be surprised if you haven't been following or you haven't recognized some of the names that have been hired by these big league organizations, but this isn't going to change. Guys are always going to be, like you said, climbing the steps, and everyone's staircase looks different. That's really all you can say about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that last step is a dream for professional baseball. So as much as people want to probably tie it to the landscape, NIL, transfer portal, those are all headaches you made the point best. You said all these guys kind of know what they signed up for. And sure, if the opportunity comes up where they can make the step out of it, that's their right to make that decision if that's the way they choose to go. But the majority of people that we've been around have been pretty consistent in the fact that it's not burning them out. It's not the landscape. It's just the doors have opened both ways through the portal of let's advance my career. I'm going to take it. And so I'm not worried about college baseball landscape. Like you said, if coaches start leaving for,
non-baseball jobs,
auto sales, backside ground balls, media, if we start getting some new personalities on the tube,
right,
that's when you should be worried, is when people are taking steps away from the game to just simply not coach.
Yep. No, that's the only time I would ever have any concern. Because right now they're just baseball coaches are coaching baseball. I don't think it's much of a story.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And it's going to be something that I'd imagine is going to crop up every offseason. Thing to keep in mind, I just thought of this and we're wrapping up here. The pro cycle is different than the college cycle.
Yes, which is why it happens. Yes.
Now, right? So these guys aren't getting through the fall. So these guys might have already moved jobs. They've already settled in. Coaching staffs have been stabilized in August, right? In July, in June, firings, hirings, advancements, all of those things, the coaching carousel that goes on in college baseball in June, July, August, then it stops for a little bit. But professional baseball doesn't start hiring until November, December, January. So all of these coaches that are now being hired now, like it's just because there's two separate carousels. This is now the professional carousel, and then you're going to see movement on that front. And, if Coach Sebuhart takes a job, Will Kaufman takes the job down at Charlotte, and now Bryant's going to have to hire a hitting coach, right? Like it's now a second cycle, and they're probably going to go grab a really good hitting coach, and because Kaufman did a great job there, and they're set up for success there. So it's just a fascinating little perspective to have, is that's why it's happening now. And that's also like, if this was happening in July, maybe we're not having these conversations because
probably
it's
not
in the thick of everybody's doing this,
the
right?
carousel. Yeah,
exactly. So it's very fascinating, but I would imagine this is not the last. This is not the last time you see it. This is not the last wave of coaches. This is not, hopefully it's not the last of head coach going to be a manager. Don't know who that would be. I think the Giants grabbed the only guy in college baseball that fits that mold of being able to be successful out there. But there's a lot of pitching coaches out there that would thrive in MLB orgs right now. Thrive. So any closing thoughts, Dan, before we let our listeners go?
If we don't get back on here, everyone have a happy holidays.
Yes. I'd assume
thanks for the support, and hopefully 2026 is just as much fun as you and I have had in 2025.
Yes, 100%. I'd imagine we'll probably try to be on here one time at least, and try to get something out before the holidays. But you're correct. Happy holidays to those. If we do not, or maybe if you're listening to this before the holidays or in your travels, safe travels everywhere that anybody's going. We'll still have content coming out on the channel, but maybe not as frequent as we've been. But we're excited for what's coming in the new year. We're excited for what we got planned. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because you're not going to want to miss any of it. And that'll do for this episode of the Baseball Development Hub podcast.